back to another episode of Unfiltered HR. I'm Emily, as usual, and today I have with me Meaghan Wessel. Meaghan is founder, owner, operator, CEO. What's like your official title that you go by?
Yeah, owner, CEO.
Okay.
/ CEO.
Okay. We all get to call ourselves whatever we want.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of Reach Power Yoga here in Buffalo. They have currently, for now, one studio on Hurdle Avenue in Buffalo. And you just celebrated, your 2-year anniversary for business? Yeah. About 2.5? Okay.
2.5.
Yeah, great. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks.
So it's grown a ton. People watching this probably know because I always do mixed business with yoga posts on LinkedIn and things. But I'm a huge, yogi, and I've practiced at different studios over the years and have found Reach now. I mean, you're right down the street from me. However, certainly I think it's the best yoga studio around, and I know you just won an award, so we'll talk about that. But talk about how you got here, like what your journey was to entrepreneurship and being a leader and Reach, and how did you take the leap?
Ooh, it's a big question. There's a lot of backstory, but basically, I've been super disciplined my entire life. It's just a natural trait that I have. So I came to Buffalo because I was running for UB and I was on a full scholarship for that. And I had it in my head that it was my dream that I was going to be a lawyer. So, I was in English pre-law. I graduated, I stayed here, I worked as a paralegal, and I was super passionate about law. And then
you're from Buffalo?
No, I'm from Canada.
Canada, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Canadian. I came here on scholarship, and that was a dream of mine.
Okay.
And then, I was working as a paralegal for a few years, and I just had a feeling that law wasn't quite for me. And
how old were you at this time?
I was 23,
Okay.
23, very young.
Yeah, young to have such clear revelations.
It's true, yeah. But it was just a really weird time because I couldn't stay here if I wasn't going to continue being a paralegal. So I moved back to Toronto, had no idea really what I was doing with my life. Worked for a few startups there, and as I was in Toronto, I was practicing yoga and taking my 200-hour, ironically, in Buffalo, because John was here.
Okay.
So I was living in Toronto, and while I was in my 200-hour, every other weekend I was coming back, actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and doing my training. And
so this is 200-hour yoga training for everyone who doesn't
right
know.
Yeah, I guess I'm not giving a lot of backstory.
No, you're good. No, I just wanted to make sure people understood. Yeah, there's a great certification program or very standard that you go through, and it's a lot of hours practicing and mastering your practice, right?
Yeah, and in hindsight, now I think a 200-hour is a pretty low certification, but it for sure takes commitment, and you really get into the practice.
Yeah.
I don't know, as I was getting into that and going through that process, I was just questioning a lot about my life, which I think is what yoga teacher training brings up. And I kind of got to the point where I started to think I want to teach yoga full-time. And I loved, the studio that I belonged to here. So eventually we figured out my visa, I moved back, I started teaching full-time and loved it, and eventually got to a point where I realized that I was going to hit a ceiling in what I could do just teaching.
Yeah, at someone else's studio.
Right.
Yeah.
And I could teach for, other studios, and I could make it a full-time gig, but I really wanted to I started to just imagine my own brand, and I had an inclination, which I don't know why I had this inclination as I was just getting trained that I would want to train teachers.
Mm.
And I knew that the way to do that was to have my own thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So.
How long do you think it took between when you started to have some idea that you wanted to do your own thing,
Yeah.
and when you became confident enough to take that leap and like really decide to do it and start doing it?
It took a while because all of this, I mean, what really put it into place for me was the pandemic.
Mm.
Because we weren't teaching in studio anymore. We weren't going in, and I know for so many of us, kind of the way we worked got disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And actually what happened was I wanted more classes than I had.
Mm.
And this was during the pandemic.
To teach, yeah.
We were teaching from home.
Okay.
You were on Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, we cleared out our entire second bedroom and made it a yoga studio so I could stream from in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people wanted to teach at my studio, some people didn't, but I was only able to do a certain amount of classes. So at that point, I was like, you know what? The whole world is listening. I can start my own classes and just have them be through me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had people from Canada who would take my class. I had people who I did trainings with in Sedona for Baptiste Level 1 take my class. And I just started creating as many classes as I wanted to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I think doing that and noticing, oh, people will actually show up just for me
Yeah.
was part of what made me feel like I can do this.
Confident, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But then it was a whole big thing because everything's closed in the pandemic. I'm looking for a space, so it took years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just always curious because I think, you know, I run into a lot of business owners, and most of them are, you know, small business owners who actually founded the thing that they're now running, and
Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about people's journey into like making that decision and taking that leap. And I think all of them are actually similar, and I think yours is too, where it's like you have this kind of like knowing and awareness of it
Yeah.
in you before you actually do it, far before. And I think it's just about becoming like intimate with that voice and like listening to it and trusting it, and then, you know, that voice aligning with who you actually are in reality and like embracing it and going for it. And yeah, I think there's all these little events along the way. Like I actually started my business during the pandemic too, because it was,
I didn't know
I
that.
think that was enough of a time where like so much got disrupted
Yeah.
that we all, any of us that like had this like feeling of like, well, I can't do it because things are supposed to be this way or should be this way, or
Yeah.
you know, because so much got blown up and we all survived anyway. Like we learned that you know, things like uncertainty is nothing. Like we can get through it. It doesn't have to be scary, maybe. But yeah, I think, you know, you just need those little events in your life to kind of nudge you closer to the cliff, and then you are there and you're like, okay, I gotta jump. That's it. It's the only choice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so much. To this day, that is the scariest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through a transformation when we were about to open, because as soon as we have the location, you know, I'm doing the LLC, it's like, oh shit, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to tell people that I'm opening this business, and either I'm gonna fall on my face or it's gonna work.
Yeah.
And I think all my biggest fears came up around that, and just thinking, you know, I could fail.
Mm-hmm.
I could never teach yoga again, at least in Buffalo. I might have to move if this fails, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you know.
From the shame, you mean, like with failing?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I wasn't going to get hired back from where I was working, so it would have to be somewhere else. Yeah. So.
No, I get that. I mean, that's a part of entrepreneurship, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, small business ownership / entrepreneurship. It's, to me, it's pretty much, it is all the same thing. It's just a matter of what words we're using and like what community you're in. But I do think it's the same. Each, whether you're calling yourself a small business owner or or even inheriting a small business to run or starting your own, I think these people do not get enough credit because yes, the amount of like courage and vulnerability it takes to do it, and literally to just look your greatest fears on the face and just continue on anyway. Courage, it's unless you've done it, you can't possibly understand it or appreciate it. And it's something that should be talked about. Plus, in your case too, and I want to get into this, like every small business, but certainly even your yoga studio, you're not making a product, right? It's not like you're doing something to save lives or whatever, but it is such a value and service to the community, and the exponential impact that the studio and practicing there has on every individual that goes to it and then out into the community, which is all an exponential impact on your own bravery and vulnerability to like do something and start it, is amazing. But that's the case for all of these founders and small business owners, and I just think it's totally under discussed and underappreciated. So so it's awesome, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about this is an HR podcast, so it might be strange to people that although you are a small business owner, you now have employees, and you are a leader in many ways, which also is now a leader of people that you employ, and you are an employer, so certainly that correlates. But what I've always found, before we get into that, your studio did just win Buffalo's best yoga studio in the city of Buffalo, which involved dethroning previous,
previous winners.
title holders. So it's not like it's a brand new category or a brand new award, so that's amazing. And I think personally, practicing at your studio and having practiced at the other title holders or just others around the country, it's definitely well deserved. So that's amazing. And you should, that's not by accident, I will say, for sure, and I know. So I guess I'll start by asking, what do you think contributed to you guys being recognized as the best and being, if we believe that the award is accurate, being the best?
I think that we do things in a very unconventional way at Reach. And if you've practiced with us, you know that. And it's kind of ironic because it's like how yoga started in this country was very much smaller classes, and it was a traditional practice, and you did the same practice. And now yoga has become like dance beats class pretty much everywhere, or handstand class, which none of these things are wrong. But I think there's been a little bit of a deviation from the actual purpose of yoga, which is transformation. And I think what gets lost when we add all this extra stuff into it, whether it's really loud beats or it's like this competitive energy that comes into the room, which is always going to be there no matter what, because we're human. But I think what gets lost is community and a container where people can really hear themselves. And I think the thing that we do very well, and that everybody who works for me is trained to do, is seeing people, and treating every single person who walks in as important. And it doesn't matter where you are in your practice. You can practice 20 years, you can be new to the practice. There's a place for you. And I think, we'll see what happens, because I think as you grow, that becomes more and more challenging. So, to me, it was very much when we won that, I do believe we have a great product, and we do work hard, and we are trained very well. And I think it's such a testament to community, because we're 2.5 years old. And people were like so excited to vote for us, and the best thing about it was that after we won, you could feel people were literally in tears or so happy that we won, because they felt like it was theirs. And
And I think that's a good segue into what I really want to talk with you about today, at least to make it why I felt like it was valuable to have you on a podcast that's talking about HR, which is really, you know, evolved into a podcast about leadership, but specific to people leadership, and that is, you know, the community that you've built at Reach. And I think when I go to Reach and when I go to practice there, especially again compared to other studios, like the words I think of are, you know, yes, community. It certainly is community. I feel it. I feel very engaged in that community. So, you know, I want to show up for the people there. I want to show, you know, I want to do my best there. I want them to do their best. Also related to that is the idea of accountability, right? So I feel accountable to do my best when I'm there and not, you know, be distracting or, you know, bring negative energy into the room or bring my cell phone into the room, which I know I do all the time because people do that. It makes me crazy. But you could just feel like there's a mutual sense of that as well. So these words, you know, community, engagement, accountability, and then the other one I think of is vulnerability. Like when you're going in there, you probably are gonna fall. Well, it depends what you're trying to do. I definitely fall a lot. I mean, and I think because there is such a sense of community and accountability to one another, it does, you know, I think that comes from the vulnerability that everybody brings when they come into the room, but it also creates, you know, and motivates people to be more vulnerable. So I talk about it all the time, like there's a pose called half pigeon at the end, and you're like, you know, stretching out major joints and it's releasing emotions and things, and I cry in yoga all the time. It's not like sad, distracting, like ugly crying, but it's just a safe place to be vulnerable because of that community and all that stuff. So these words, community, engagement, vulnerability, accountability, and the culture you've built around it there for your, you know, clients that come in there, myself, to the teachers, you and John. So Meaghan's husband, John, also teaches at the studio and helps her run it. And now the employees you have, like these are all words that employers dream of being used and being a part of their own workplace culture. So I wanted to talk with you today, you know, how do you think this relates to, you know, I think the same concepts and building these concepts through leadership and just the culture you create certainly can translate into the workplace. So, you know, how do you believe you achieved that, and what are kind of some purposeful actions that you took to build that culture and continue to take every day to like protect it?
Well, there are a few things. I mean, I think honestly probably the most important thing is just leading by example. So, you know, if you're up there and you're asking your community to be vulnerable and you're asking people to take risks and to open up, you can't be up there closed and, you know, trying to look good. And we all go into that. You know, I'm up there some days trying to look good because I'm a human being, as are other people in the room.
You pretty much do always look good.
Well, I appreciate that. It doesn't feel that way internally, but I think, you know, I was always, whether I was running or in my yoga teacher training or whatever, I was around a lot of leaders who kind of led by authority. You know, it's like, I'm in charge, I'm above you, and everybody else is gonna do what I say, which kind of creates this disconnect and tension in the space. And I am, you know, like I think probably everybody who knows me knows that I'm really big on boundaries. So I'm not saying you need to go be everybody's friend. But I think there's just, every one of us who's a teacher and a leader is going through their own process in public. And I think that helps other people feel like they can do the same.
Yeah, I think you are extending, you are first extending like trust and vulnerability, or, you know, demonstrating that by first of all being up there. And I should say, like, all of the teachers that you know, not all of them, but most of them that you have now are ones that you're like grown growing and developing from our, the Reach community itself. So they're starting just as students there, and then, everyone else in the community knows that they are going to the teacher training.
Yeah.
So they know that they don't know how to be a teacher at first, and we all get to see them either, succeed or, learn, I guess I'll say, and not fail through that. And so that's a huge sense of vulnerability too. So I think, that's a great lesson for all leaders anywhere, but including at workplaces, where like these foundational elements of vulnerability and trust, like with the people you are leading, are so critical to then get that back. And it has to be a two-way street, and both giving and receiving those things, and being able to have an amazing relationship where you can have that engagement and that trust and that just efficacy in leading, right? You'll be so much stronger as a leader and more effective at those things.
Yeah, and I think it's the energy that's created, when a bunch of people are, we're all moving, not in the same way, but I think a lot of us who are at the studio have the same values. That's why we're all there.
Yeah.
Well,
and you talked about boundaries too, and that's something I'm constantly coaching, whether it's like the owners of the businesses I work with or leaders within them. Like, it's a very hard thing, especially when you live and you practice in the community of Buffalo, which is the community that the community you've created and lead is within. So how do you I don't know without some good healthy boundaries that you can play an effective role as a leader around those same people. And I think your students learn, or the students that you teach to be teachers have to learn that too. But I think you do set really good boundaries. It's super intense sometimes.
I agree.
But like from my experience personally, as a student in your class, I have felt that at times, and at times, because I am a human, I'm like, man, I wish like Meaghan could just be my friend and not I try to like whine or complain about something, and you give it, basically you don't allow very much space for it, which I think it's really good. And I'm like, what the heck? And then like, oh my god, that was actually so good. Because then I want to push harder and not make an excuse. And so I think boundaries is a super important element of that. But also I think talk about more about like boundaries that you've set in terms of like the standards you set for the community and how you protect those, right? Whether like students coming in and their behavior, things that are going on in the classroom.
For sure. Oh yeah. I think I would say that I do well with that. We all do, but we definitely have a culture that is very different than most yoga studios or gyms, where it's like we do give people, especially if it's 6 p.m., like a 3-minute buffer, 3 to 5, depending on traffic. But if you don't make it, if class is at 6 and you're not there by like 6:03, you're missing class. And that's your first experience with the studio. And from that, holding that boundary, people show up on time. And people who have never been on time in their entire life become people who are on time. So that's one. There's stuff that happens in the classroom. We have markers where you put your mat in between the markers, so it's like you have your space and you're respecting other people's space. I've had a good amount of situations where it's been uncomfortable for me, and I get better at it each time. But if somebody's not a good fit for the studio, I tell them, you're not welcome back.
Oh, you've had to say that.
Oh, for sure. I had to do it this week.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, but it's very much about, to me, what we're talking about. We have this sacred space where people feel safe, and I'm always going to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. But if it's clear to me that it's just not the right fit, you'll find somewhere else that's better suited for you.
That's amazing, and that again takes a crazy amount of courage, but I think like that's you holding yourself accountable as the ultimate leader of that space and that community.
Yeah.
And I think that correlates hugely with employers. And a lot of work I do with my clients who are employers, a lot of times, I think one of the things that makes it easier for you is you have very clearly defined, values for the practice or the community there, for reach, for what you're trying to build there, which, many employers do not think of that very as purposefully when they are starting their business, right? This is the type of business we want to be, this is the culture we want, this is the type of employer we want to be. So without those being defined, how do you set the boundaries to protect them?
Right.
But you have those well defined, and then you do an excellent job of setting that boundary. And I haven't known that you have had to ask people to leave the studio. And I know we're talking about customers and clients technically of yours, but I see it's no different than like an employer or another business hiring employees. Like when you come in, we are very clear with you about what this place is and how we treat each other here, and the things that we do, and respecting one another. And if you're not on board with that, then you're not going to be here very long. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, and it's extremely uncomfortable. And a lot of employers are so uncomfortable in doing that for whatever reason, right? Like fear of outside judgment or outside narratives or voices. Just fear of the discomfort in the moment of saying that. But I think that's a concept that hugely correlates with leadership anywhere, including inside of businesses. And again, the results of doing that speak for themselves at your studio, at least, and I think they would at any employer, because you're protecting the space for everybody else in it who is very much interested in alignment with your values, and that makes them want to stay more, and it makes the community stronger and more engaged and more productive, and everybody gets more out of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a huge reason why people believe that is the best studio. Yeah. Even if they don't consciously understand that.
Right. Yeah. I think it's true, and I think it's a process. But if you kind of do that, I think your business is going to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really the concept of, I think, accountability, which I mentioned earlier. It's like one of my favorite words, but I think it starts with a leader holding these values, and you very much feel accountable to creating and facilitating and protecting this space for your customers, and you do that, and I think then they all feel accountable to do the same, which is awesome how that becomes kind of a self-managing community at some point too.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm very big, as I know, well, I think you are too. It's like you can say something, but if I don't feel it from you, I don't really care what you're saying to me. I want to see your actions, and you can't be leading and saying this is what we value and then doing something else. It just doesn't work, and I think a lot of people, unfortunately, when they don't know their values, that's how they operate. It's just like, well, I can say the right thing, and then everything should work out, but it's like, yeah, but if you're not embodying what you're saying, there's a disconnect, and then there's not a trust with the people who report to you, and you're wondering, why things are blowing up.
Yeah. Why they're not taking you seriously, why.
Right.
Yeah, I have clients say all the time, like, can't I just hire someone to do something, and then they just do it, and it's like, that's absolutely not how it works for like so many reasons.
Right.
But if you aren't demonstrating integrity and accountability yourself, then you don't even, again, like, if you ask these employees or whatever in whatever environment you're leading, like, why they aren't doing the thing you want them to do, they may not even consciously understand why they are not, but
Totally.
it is definitely because they're not getting a signal from the leader on what is serious and what's not, and so there's no healthy fear of repercussions, there's no sense of accountability between anybody, and nothing is gonna have any integrity at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you think your role, it's been 2.5-ish years, how has your role as a leader and facilitator of like this culture, this community evolved over time, compared from
I think it's having this business has made me grow up in a lot of ways. Because you think it's not about you, especially if you're teaching yoga and you're in that space, but until you are actually running a company and responsible for something like this, I just don't think that you get outside of yourself quite as fast. You might be able to, it's pretty common if you're teaching yoga to break out of that 10 years in, whatever. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this at all. But I've noticed a big shift in me just in the amount of time we've been open, from I need to do this, I need to achieve this, I want to do X, Y, Z in my career, into what do I want this community to look like? And what do I want, what's important, in terms of our impact for other people. It sounds crazy to open a business and not be thinking about other people, but I don't think I really was in the same way that I am now.
So you feel like a greater sense of accountability to the community that you've created now, more so than you even did before. Well, yeah, maybe you didn't realize like how it is significant to all of us that are there for sure. So
yeah, I think it's just definitely, I think the biggest shift I've gone through is from thinking primarily about myself and what I want to what is best for the community. So that comes into play with exactly what we were just talking about. It's like, do I want to have the uncomfortable conversation with this person and tell them that they can't come back to the studio? No. But is that the best thing for the community? Yes. Okay, so now I have to, man up and go have that conversation.
Yeah, that's amazing. You say man up. I know women are more likely to do those uncomfortable things too for like the service of the greater community. And that's like, servant leadership, and it all comes back to like accountability. And if you aren't holding yourself accountable, then the rest of the whole team or system or community that you're trying to build or cultivate or also hold accountable is totally going to suffer.
Yeah.
What about so I know you've hired and trained and developed your own set of employees at this point, and in your case this means like other people that you are trusting to teach classes in the way that you want them to be taught. And certainly it's very personal to you because you started the studio wanting to almost like revive a practice that you feel has been somewhat, and I would agree, like it's just become way too westernized probably is the best way to put it.
Totally.
So how has that journey been in like, in the entrepreneur world? Like there's the EOS system and it's called like delegating and elevating and all these things. But how has that experience been for you, like trying to delegate and let go enough to let these other teachers teach? I know there was a lot of training and hand holding, but they do teach independently on their own now. Sure. So how has that been, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge. I think, again, before Reach, there is only so much you can learn from within yourself, and when you're the only one leading the ship, and it's just interesting. So many things have come up for me training teachers, because it's like your own insecurities come up training teachers. You're teaching them, go be confident up there, and then it's like, but I'm going into new depths with you. I'm newer to this, so it's just this interesting thing where I think, again, I am leading, of course, but it's become more collaborative than what I experienced in my training, because I realized that I'm growing through them too. And it's like I had this worry, because if you're in yoga, or maybe if you're working for somebody, you're relying on the person above you to guide you, and you're doing your own work, but you're receiving training from them, and you're like, I have this person, I have my boss, whatever, who's going to help me out. And then when you become the boss, you're like, wait, who do I learn from?
Yeah.
And you do, I mean, I go to trainings, I do all these things, but I learn from the people who work for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they show me things that I wouldn't see about myself. So
yeah, and then I imagine, again, even in business, like, you're eventually going to have employees and people that report to you that may even be better at some things
right?
than you are, and like that's like hard to stare in the face and
Yeah.
not have trigger all these insecurities, and it's quite the process.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely, you know, I think I'm new to it, so it's a big process in learning how to let go.
Yeah, well, I think it's amazing how much you've been willing to do it and have been successful in doing it, and especially since, like, you know, I think compared to like traditional employment where, you know, you're wearing a bunch of hats as the, you know, founder perhaps, and now you aren't going to do the accounting anymore because like it doesn't make sense to, and you're going to hire an accountant. It's like, well, that's pretty easy. You hire someone that has the skill set, so there's some like inherent trust there, and you know, confidence, and you didn't really want to do it anyway, and it's whatever. But in your case, you're like, you know, you definitely are the brand at Reach and why people like go there, and but you want, you know, if the business is to be somewhat scalable and you know, live on a long time, and for you to also have any sort of a life. Also,
right.
like, you have to delegate, and you are literally just trying to duplicate yourself, and that, you know, I'm sure is difficult even from like, yes, you're human, like an ego standpoint, and you want them to do as well as you probably, but also not.
Yeah, I mean, that for sure comes up. I mean, I think when we're newer teachers or we're newer to our job or whatever, we're replicating the people that we look up to. That for sure was the case with me, and I can't tell you how many years it's taken for me to actually be in my own voice, and now that I understand how long that process is, and of course there's still things I'm going through with that, it's like knowing that, yeah, people are going to be replicating you, like you're saying, like you're bringing other people up, but eventually they're going to be in their own expression. And then people are going to go to these teachers for things that I can't give them. They will all have skills that are different than mine, and some will be the same, but like they're going to be their own person who cares about the values of Reach. That's why they're there. But they're going to attract different students, you know, that maybe wouldn't resonate with me. So
yeah, well, it seems like you pretty, you know, impressively and quickly moved past, I think, what most people's concerns would be in that way. Like, again, to me, the fact that you're like, you know, making the decision and taking the leap to do that part only, you know, 2 years in is pretty crazy. Because I mean, I would say, and I've talked about this on recent episodes too, the difference between, you know, I think there's a few major similarities between businesses that are really successful and survive and scale, and those that, you know, stagnate, or, and sometimes it's just a choice not to scale, and that's fine too. That's what I do with my business. I don't really care to like replicate myself and grow it out. I deal with enough of my clients' employees. I don't need my own. I get plenty of that, you know, exercise that muscle that way. It's the founder owner's willingness and ability to let go and delegate. And there's many reasons why they may not be willing to. Most are tied to fear, either ego or whatever it might be. But I think it's really great that you've done it so quickly. Do you have like a specific piece of advice that you could impart and share and pass on, like that helped make it easier for you?
I don't know. I think something that I've really been working with is that, you know, the people who are supposed to come to me and who are supposed to be my students, or I guess if we're thinking about other businesses, my clients will be. It's energetics. There's a connection there. And then the people who are meant for other teachers are going to go to other teachers, and it's the same with businesses too, right? do you really want to hold on to a client who's not invested in your business and who doesn't love it, and where there's going to be tension? Like, let them go be with someone they're going to resonate with.
Or do you want to do things in the business that you're not even good at doing, that doesn't light you up to do?
Right.
What are you really getting out of that? Yeah.
Right, and I love to be in the classroom, but I don't want to be in the classroom any more than I am with everything else that I like to do. I like to train teachers. I'm not giving the social media to anybody. You know, and it's like, I like to go do what I do, which is the big thing, and move people pretty intensely a few times a week, and I don't want to be in there more than I am. So that means that other people are going to have to be in there if I want to scale.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's just, I mean, if you can't overcome it from an ego death standpoint, then maybe a practical mentality about it is better, which is, not doing it is probably, depending what your goals are, but most often it's going to be a barrier to you getting what you really want in the end. So
Yeah.
Sure. What's your favorite pose? Are you allowed to have a favorite pose? Will you answer that question?
Yeah, that's good. I think it changes for me. Like, I can't really say that I've had a consistent favorite pose. I love side angle. I don't know, I feel powerful in that.
That's a great stretch.
Great stretch and strengthener. I love the heart openers. I mean, that's one of the big points of the Baptiste practice, is to do all this work to get to a place where we're in a physical and energetic expansion. And I love that. And I really don't like taking a class where they don't do heart openers.
Yeah. Great. Okay. If you had to pick one part of the yoga practice that you think, just thinking about the audience, I mean, we're all humans, so obviously but specifically entrepreneurs, business owners, either a lesson they could get from actually coming to a class, but just in general that you could extract from the practice to apply in their own entrepreneurial leadership journey, what would that lesson be?
That you would learn by practicing.
Yeah, by practicing. That you could, give here today, and that they could experience while practicing, but also just you could kind of shortcut it for them and give it to them now.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that naturally comes to me, and part of why I love the practice and fell in love with the practice, and you will know this if you practice with us, is that we're in a very, very hot room, right? It can be 100 degrees in the winter, and it's a very physical and intense practice, and you're in there for 60 minutes, 75 minutes, whatever. But definitely when you're in a 75-minute class, you're going through this big journey. And you're going to have usually a lot of different experiences within that class, like emotionally, physically. And the practice is designed for there to be points where you're really feeling squeezed and like you're on your edge. And we talk a lot about in the practice just staying in the room. And I think that, that's entrepreneurship, is staying in the frickin' room. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you know, and you don't know until you are one day, or more often within the span of one day, you're on a high, you're on top of the world at the beginning of the day, and then something happens and you're like, I'm a piece of shit, I hate this business, I'm not meant for entrepreneurship. And it's just, what I've noticed, whether it's on the mat or like in entrepreneurship, those moments where you're feeling so challenged, you actually usually get more out of those moments than the ones where everything is great and amazing and just flowing.
Yeah, no, that is a perfect answer. And that's exactly how I feel in the writing I've done about, drawing correlations between life and yoga, or, what happens on the mat, or business and yoga. It's very similar. And it's true, like what you're saying is the lessons and that that you learn in this little microcosm environment on your yoga mat and in the studio and in practice are so translatable to like every other part of your life, including if you are running a business. And you say that all the time when we're practicing, but it's so true. I've definitely experienced every emotion, like happy narratives and really mean narratives and all these things on my mat. And then when you get to the end, especially the 9:30, 75-minute Sunday classes, like you get to the end and you're like, most of the time I'm probably crying, but some of that's tears of joy. But you feel so good, like you're so happy and proud of yourself for just like one, showing up, to like getting through it, not leaving the room, not leaving your mat. It really is great. So thank you. That was an amazing answer, but thank you for coming on and being vulnerable enough to do it. I do think there's so many great lessons, like personally, that a business owner or entrepreneur can take from practicing, but also as a leader, just on how to, you've set a great example on how to really build community, how to protect community, how to really motivate and get high engagement, and all of those are things that I think most employers can do better and take for granted. And we see it in the results of the community outreach and the experience we all have going there, but also in the success that you've had with your business. So congrats. That's great. So if you guys want to check out Reach, and I would highly recommend you doing so, whether you have ever practiced yoga before or not.
We'll take you.
On Hurdle Avenue in Buffalo, they're on social. They have a website. Anything else that they should know to access you?
Just we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can really find us wherever. We have an app, Reach Power Yoga.
And there's like a what is it, like $30 for the first 10 days, or what's the intro?
So the intro is awesome because your first class is actually $10, but if you get a class pack after that, they're all $15 a piece. So we recommend, do the first class drop-in and then do the intro offer, which is $30, and you can practice if you want.
It's unlimited.
So
$30 unlimited for how many
2
days?
weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
So you could practice twice a day if you wanted to. You can.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You can jump right in.
No, that's great, because I think like anything new you do for the first time, like everyone's so scared they're gonna look stupid, feel stupid, you're gonna be uncomfortable. We all know that. Like if you've started a business, because that's how you feel in the beginning. But it's about repetition and iterations, I would say. So go and just throw yourself into literally the fire for as many times as you can within that first trial, and that will quickly wear off. Frankly, no one cares what you're doing or what you look like, because they're suffering themselves on their own mat. They have no time to worry or energy to worry about you.
Exactly.
Or find me. I'm usually in the second row and come practice with me, and a little fist bump after the hard stuff.
I love it.
It's good. It's great. Well, thank you, Meaghan. Thank you for the community that you created, and and for making Buffalo even better too by doing that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. See you guys next time. Check out Reach.